All right, welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. India is at the cusp of a fundamental shift in its nuclear energy policy. The Lok Sabha on 17th December 2025 passed the Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India Bill 2025. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX Explained with me, Vineet Malhotra. Today we are discussing about the SHANTI Bill passed in the Parliament and what would privatization of nuclear energy in India entail. First, let's listen to what Union Minister of Science and Technology Jitendra Singh said while tabling the bill in the Parliament on December 15th, 2025.
सस्टेनेबल हार्नेसिंग एंड एडवांसमेंट ऑफ न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी फॉर ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग इंडिया, अर्थात जैसे आपने कहा शांति। और इस टाइटल का महत्व इसलिए भी बढ़ जाता है कि आज से 60-70 बरस पहले जब हिंदुस्तान ने अपना परमाणु कार्यक्रम शुरू किया तो दुनिया भर में एक बड़ा तनाव का माहौल था। हिरोशिमा नागासाकी को हुए कुछ ही बरस गुजरे थे और बहुत सारे देश हिंदुस्तान को शक की निगाह से देखने लगे थे। और उस समय परमाणु कार्यक्रम के जन्मदाता, the founding father of India's nuclear program, Homi Bhabha, had declared to the world that India's nuclear program will be dedicated to peaceful purposes.
Well, Shanti Bill is aimed at restructuring and partially privatizing India's nuclear power sector. This marks a departure from decades of state monopoly and strategic caution. At its core, the bill seeks to open India's civil nuclear ecosystem to private participation while retaining state control over safety, regulation and strategic materials. The move aligns with the government's aim to achieve 100 gigawatt of nuclear power capacity by 2047. The bill also seeks to repeal the Atomic Energy Act 1962 and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010 that currently regulate India's nuclear landscape. Since independence, India's nuclear energy program has been firmly controlled by the state. The sector has operated under the Atomic Energy Act 1962, which effectively barred private companies from owning, operating or investing in nuclear power plants. This was driven by three core concerns: national security, safety and non-proliferation. The Shanti Bill seeks to change this model. The government is not handing over nuclear weapons, fissile materials or strategic decision making to private sector. Instead, it is opening up civil nuclear power generation to private capital, technology partnerships and joint ventures under a strict regulatory framework. In simple terms, the state remains the guardian, the private sector becomes a partner, and nuclear energy moves from a closed silo to a collaborative infrastructure sector. For the first time, private companies, including joint ventures and other entities, will be able to apply for licenses to set up and operate nuclear facilities. The bill also allows such entities to transport nuclear fuel. However, key activities such as uranium enrichment, spent fuel management and heavy water production will continue to remain under the exclusive control of the centre. Let's understand how will nuclear activities be regulated. Well, the bill states that all nuclear and radiation-related activities will require a license from the centre and safety authorization from the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. It gives statutory backing to the Atomic Energy Board, defining its powers to regulate safety, radiation exposure, waste management, inspections and emergency preparedness. It also gives the centre power or liability to assume control of radioactive substances or radiation-generating equipment to contain a safety hazard. The bill states, and I quote, the central government may either, on the recommendations of the board or if it considers necessary for the prevention of radiation hazards, assume control of any radioactive substance or radiation generating equipment, including for their safe disposal, and the cost of such disposal may be recovered from the holder of safety authorization. But the biggest contention of the bill, which is also the cause of debate in the Parliament, is what happens in case of a nuclear accident. If a nuclear accident happens, the company operating the nuclear plant will be held mainly responsible for the damage caused. This means the operator has to pay compensation to those affected. However, the operator will not be held responsible if the damage is caused by very extreme situations like a major natural disaster, war, terror attacks or civil unrest. The problem arises here if the cost of compensation goes beyond what the operator is legally required to pay. then the central government will step in and cover remaining amounts. Let's listen in to what Congress MP Manish Tiwari had to say about the matter.
You'll have to source equipment from abroad. Nuclear reactor fabrication is not happening in India. Is it the position of the government that in today's context, the supplier is not going to be liable at all? And number two, on liability, is it the philosophical position of this government that privatizing profit and socializing liability is the philosophy of this government?
Well, the government, however, has made it clear that to make sure money is available in case of an accident, operators must have insurance or other financial guarantees in place. In India, this is currently covered through the Indian Nuclear Insurance Pool, which provides 1,500 crores as insurance under the existing nuclear liability law. The bill also sets up a Nuclear Damage Claims Commission, which will decide who gets compensation and how much. Meanwhile, research and innovation work in nuclear energy will mostly not need licenses, unless it affects national security or involves areas that only the government is allowed to handle. At the heart of this reform lies the reality of Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, the state-owned entity that has single-handedly built and operated India's nuclear power plants. NPCIL has delivered on safety and strategic autonomy, but it faces structural limitations. First, capital constraints. Nuclear power plants are among the most capital-intensive infrastructure projects in the world. With NPCIL relying largely on government budgetary support, project execution has been slow and often delayed. Second, scale and speed. India has a modest nuclear capacity relative to its size and energy needs. Expansion targets 20 gigawatts, 30 gigawatts and beyond have repeatedly slipped because a single state entity cannot build at the required scale and speed. Third, risk concentration. When one entity builds, owns and operates everything, financial, operational and reputational risks are concentrated in the state. Uranium supply is central to the nuclear question domestically. India has limited but strategic uranium reserves, primarily in Jharkhand, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. These reserves are mined and managed by state-owned entities with strict environmental and security controls. However, domestic production is not sufficient to meet long-term demand, particularly as capacity expands. This is where international agreements come in. Following the 2008 civil nuclear deal and the subsequent waiver from the nuclear suppliers group, India gained access to global uranium markets. India currently imports uranium from countries such as Kazakhstan, Canada, Australia, Russia, France, Uzbekistan. All imports are subject to safeguards and international monitoring, ensuring they are used only and only for civilian purposes. The SHANTI Bill does not alter state control over uranium. Mining, imports and fuel management remain firmly in government hands. Private players are kept at arm's length from strategic materials, addressing non-proliferation concerns. The SHANTI Bill has triggered concerns and apprehensions amongst the opposition and sections of the public. In response, the government has released a detailed FAQ to address questions and clear misconceptions, laying out the myths and facts surrounding the legislation. The centre maintains that the move does not amount to privatization, stressing that nuclear fuel safety and strategic oversight will remain firmly under government control. However, critics continue to express fears over a possible rise in electricity costs and long-term risks to India's nuclear future.